Welcome back to the Whatnauts review show, number 253. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined by Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa, how are you this weekend?
I am doing well. How's your weekend?
Good so far. Lots of rain. It's been a real gloomy week. Started playing Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, so the world is crying, shedding more tears of the kingdom for me. But that's it. No, it's great. Great weekend so far. Lots of good stuff. So there you go.
Nice.
There you go.
Good to
hear. What about you? Any plans?
Yesterday, we took our mom to the Science Center for Mother's Day. She wanted to take my niece to the planetarium. So it was just me and my mom, my older brother, and my niece. And we get the first planetarium tickets of the day for this like little kid-friendly show with like a cartoon sun on it. We are the only people in the planetarium. It was a private showing exclusively for the Wilkinson family.
That's kind of cool, though, right?
Yeah.
Have the whole planetarium too. You can be as loud and obnoxious as you want, or just sit there and take it all in and not have to worry about anyone else.
Yes. Those stars are just for us.
Indeed. Speaking of just for us, I got to pitch a cartoon that I've been wanting to rewatch for a long time. So I guess this is maybe just for me. So I hope you enjoyed it too.
I did.
Melissa. But this week here on the Whatnauts review show, we are finally getting to talk about the spectacular Spider-Man cartoon. Ran for about 2 seasons, a total of 26 episodes.
Disney Plus listed as 1 season.
Yeah, and I think it's technically like aired on TV as 2, but it was just like it got canceled so early that it was just like, let's just stick the whole thing up as 1. But yeah, spectacular Spider-Man. Man, I never initially watched this when it came out. I was a little bit late to the party. Actually, hold up before I do all of that stuff. In case you guys didn't know, the Whatnauts review show, every week here on the show, we have a brand new story to talk about. Could be a manga, could be a comic book, a TV show, movie, all sorts of stuff. We read it, we watch it, we come back here and talk about it. Like I
Sometimes
said, spectacular.
We are so excited
Spider-Man.
to talk about the thing. We forget to do our actual intro at all.
Yeah, exactly. I like to play it loose sometimes and not do the stuff like right at the start. And sometimes I think it works out well. It has that like, you get introduced to everyone. Okay, here's the spiel on the show, all that stuff. Sometimes I just completely forget to do the intro, like on the captain's log this past week. We went through the entirety of the show and I was ending it and realized I hadn't done the intro. I was like, well, oh well. Too late now. But yeah, here we are. Spectacular Spider-Man. Yeah, I came a little bit late to this show. I think after it had already gotten canceled. And I started checking it out and it fell in love with it pretty fast and was so upset when I learned that this got canceled and did not make it into a 3rd season, especially since it has a cliffhanger ending. Or it's like not wrapped up by the end. But yeah, it's a show that I've been wanting to rewatch for a while because I think it's a really good example of a Spider-Man cartoon. I think it's a decent cartoon in its own right, and I've wanted to get a little more. I think I described it a couple weeks ago as like, let me get a children's show here on our podcast, and it is, but it's also not like a baby cartoon. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Baby cartoons for
my
babies.
Words here, yeah.
I understand. It is like a TV Y7. It's got a similar sort of tone and level to it to like an Avatar, The Last Airbender, but in a Spider-Man coming of age in a New York high school setting.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really liked it. I was impressed by this. I think the show is
Good.
really well structured, both as a whole season and within its individual episodes. It plays with the storytelling in certain
Hmm.
episodes in a way I really appreciated. It's got a big cast of characters with the Rogues Gallery and with Peter's high school peers, and they will introduce characters for long plot lines. Like you meet a just regular old scientist named Dr. Octavius episodes before he ever becomes a Doc Ock. Like I
Right.
like the
Yeah.
lead in time to
Yes.
everything and the fallout time. For example, another one of the early villains is Kurt Connors, who turns into the lizard. And then Peter is able to heal him. He's able to help him. And then he's just regular Kurt Connors for the rest of the season, but still dealing in the back of his mind, oh no, what if I become the lizard again?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is a great example of Spider-Man and his cast of characters and his world. There's a number of changes and stuff that they made from the original comics, but the show does a great job of paying homage to the original comics, to the Sam Raimi movies, to the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, and kind of mixing them all together to create something that like feels genuinely like, oh yes, they nailed it. This is Spider-Man. It has great. I mean, the creators behind it have done some notable work. Victor Cook and Greg Wiseman. Greg Wiseman, you guys might remember if you're an older head like Melissa and I from Gargoyles. He then also went on to create Young Justice, which is a very well regarded DC comic superhero show. And Victor Cook is, if I'm not mistaken, one of the directors on Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. Which we have
one
also
of my very
covered here
favorites.
on
Yes.
on that show.
Long ago.
Realize that like they had done all of that stuff until I looked them up and was just like, oh, we did. Yes,
Right.
great stuff. No wonder this cartoon is so good, right?
Yes, great pedigrees. Thank you for bringing these details. I knew
Yeah.
these names from something.
Exactly. Great voice cast to everyone from D. Bradley Baker, who does all of the clones in the Star Wars, Clone Wars cartoons up to Bad Batch. We get to see Clancy Brown in this. All sorts of stuff. All sorts of people are in this for sure.
A nice use of Ed Asner for a flashback episode about Uncle Ben.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had a blast watching this. It is a good one indeed. But yeah, plot wise, I mean, it's
Spider-Man. You've heard of him.
Yeah.
He's Peter Parker, but shh, keep that a secret.
Keep that on the low. Don't tell his Aunt May, who he's taking care of as best he can. But yeah, it is Peter Parker in his high school times. He has been Spider-Man for a little while. Not super long. Couple months, maybe a year at most. But yeah, he's still kind of figuring things out. He's just starting to get his job at the Daily Bugle, where he is taking pictures of Spider-Man. You guys know the deal. And it's kind of his life and the things he gets up to in high school, the relationship drama, all of the stuff like, should I try out for the football team? Should I try out for the school play? Should I date Liz Allen? Should I date Gwen Stacy? What about my best friend, Harry Osborn? Well, I have to say, the show did not do a great job of making them seem like best friends. It seems like they hate each other.
I will say this, though. Harry was the first thing that told me I was in good hands. This is the dorkiest Harry Osborn I have ever seen.
Yes.
He is not cool. And I really loved getting to see that perspective on Harry, where he truly is kind of a dweeb.
Yep, exactly. But yeah, he has run-ins with from bigger, more well-known villains like Doc Ock and the Lizard, Mysterio, the Green Goblin, to some
Mhm.
smaller ones that you might not know as much from Montana Ox and Fancy Dan, the Big Man, Tombstone, Hammerhead, all sorts of stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a great cast of characters. I like this show a lot. Indeed, it's one to
Yes.
check out for sure. Um,
Yeah. I think it
did you
is
want to
very
add something else
well-rounded.
too? Yeah.
I just want to note that we happen to be recording this episode on Mother's Day, and I think that's appropriate in honor of Aunt May, one of pop culture's greatest maternal figures. Shout out to you,
Yes.
Aunt May, on Mother's Day and
Exactly.
every day.
Exactly. Um, yeah, I say we take a quick break for some housekeeping, and then when we come back, we can dive right into spoilers and start breaking it down a little bit more. So yeah, we will be right back. Here at the Whatnauts, we make multiple different shows, and a lot of hard work goes into making them, so we would love it if you check them all out. If you enjoy our shows, patreon.com/thewhatnauts is the best place to show your support. For just $1 a month, you can get early access to episodes, and at our $3 tier, a Patreon exclusive podcast, The Pilots Club. You can even get a shout out and thank you on most of our shows at the $5 tier. And if you're one of our patrons already, thank you so much, it means the world to us. You can find out more information on our website, thewhatnauts.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in the Whatnauts, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. You can also find us on YouTube and Twitch for video versions of the shows, trailer reactions, and live streams. And lastly, we have merch. If you want to grab yourself a shirt or a hoodie or a mug or something else, head over to thewhatnauts.com/store to pick up some merch today. And we are back. Once again, a big shout out to our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We love you a lot. It means a ton. Cool things we've been up to here at the Whatnauts. Over on our Patreon exclusive show, The Pilots Club, we just talked about the pilot for Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. So if you want some more Marvel cartoon action, you can go check that out. That's at our $3 tier and above. I really enjoy that show. Both the Pilots Club making it and Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy it a lot. Right here on the review show, a couple weeks ago, I was about to say last week, but we took the week off last week on the review show, a rare occasion. But last episode here on the review show, we started our monthly ongoing coverage of The Good Place, our first sitcom that we're doing here on the review show. We've done a few like sitcom exchanges and a few episodes from this, and I give them to Melissa and she gives me some from another one. But first time watching the entirety of a sitcom.
We've done comedic shows before, but
For sure.
this is our first, I think, like network sitcom we're really discussing in detail. And this was especially a genre of show that I wanted to bring to the monthly ongoing series, to watch something from beginning to end and not just season one, where I know a lot of sitcoms can still be a little shaky.
Exactly. So we will be covering the remaining seasons of The Good Place over the next couple of months at the end of each month. So be on the lookout for all of that. Over on the Reactor Core, we have a spoiler cast for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and we have been continuing our reactions to Yellow Jackets Season 2. So yeah, I'm excited about all of that stuff. Over on the Captain's Log, we got to talk about my dad just figuring out that dad jokes are a thing. We got to talk about Viz Manga's new app, and when you stopped playing with toys as toys, not just like I have collectibles back here. But
Yeah.
like, when did you stop like mashing them together
Yes.
and hiding them and making them kiss and
Making a Barbie
right?
kiss. Yeah.
Exactly.
Long
exactly. Lots of fun stuff for you all to check out. But yeah, that is housekeeping. So I say we get on to spoilers. Spectacular Spider-Man. Melissa, the first thing I want to talk about is the theme song. What did you think of the theme song? Because I love this theme song. It's so catchy. And I think one of the best scenes in the entirety of the show is when there's three villains on the elevator just waiting as it goes up. And one of them is humming the theme song. Spider-Man. And they all like look at him just like, what are you doing? He's like, what? It's catchy. And I'm just like, that's great. So what did you think?
It's very of its time, which I mean positively. It sounds like a mid-2000s like indie rock song.
Yeah.
And not the traditional bombastic, he soars through the air Spider-Man theme.
Right. Yeah. That or the like really traditional Spider-Man, trying to do something on that, which that one almost seems goofy in comparison. Like the theme song has a cool factor to it. Because
you can't even hear all of the lyrics clearly, which I think is also included under the umbrella of cool factor.
Yeah, it's so catchy. It's different. I don't feel like there has been a Spider-Man theme song set or before that has been as catchy as this one. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say that this is the best Spider-Man theme song that's out there, but it's up there for sure. So yeah, I just had to ask on that because I like it. One thing I do also like in that is because there is such a big cast of characters in this show, the animation that is happening during the theme song introduces different characters every time. It repeats them every so often, but you know, sometimes you'll get like Peter Parker and Mary Jane and Flash Thompson, whereas the other time might be Liz Allen and J. Jonah Jameson and Frederick Foswell and stuff like that. And you're just like, what? There's so many characters. Oh my God.
There are. I would skip over the intro after the first couple times I watched it, just in the interest of time.
How dare you, Melissa?
Or sometimes I would have it on and I wouldn't be looking at it. So it was until quite a ways into the series that I realized they were doing that. But I like the idea.
Yeah. Good theme song. I like it. That's all I have to say on that one. But I'm curious to know a little bit more about your thoughts on this, as it mixes in the even stuff from like the Sam Raimi movies.
Yeah.
Just like what
upside down kiss.
Yeah, what stood out to you about this cartoon here?
Like I said, I like how they would introduce something for a longer game than you would expect in a TV Y7 cartoon from Disney XD in like 2008. Like they would play things out over a couple episodes. Like I said, you meet Dr. Octavius and later you find out he's going to turn into Doc Ock. It's got smaller arcs. Like here's the Venom arc, for instance. But you first meet Eddie Brock in like episode 1 as like an older friend of Peter and Gwen's. Like he was an upperclassman when they were freshmen or something. And now he's another one of the helpers, the assistants, the lab assistants there with Dr. Connors. Like it's a bunch of different people who just sort of rotate in and out of Peter's life in a way that felt a bit more naturalistic. Like, I like the idea that somebody did not arrive on the scene exactly when they were needed to be a friend or foe. They were just sort of always there and then just brought into the spotlight for a couple episodes. Then they'll recede back a little ways. I liked that a lot. There's a lot of pieces on the chessboard at any given time, both in terms of the Rogues Gallery and the love interests and the peers. Like we start with there's Gwen
Yeah.
Stacy. You know, her and Peter don't immediately have a thing, but you know who Gwen Stacy is. You know where this is going. Then he starts tutoring Liz Allen and he kind of gets a crush on her. I love the runner with Mary Jane. I really like how she's introduced, where just like in the comics, this is one of the few things I do know about the comics, is that Aunt May is friends with her grandma and they hang out all the time. And she tells Peter, like, oh, you should really hang out with Mary Jane Watson. She's a lovely girl. She's got a great personality. And Peter's thinking, oh, great personality. That means she's ugly.
Yeah.
And he never outright says that, but you know, he'll be talking to Harry and he's like, my aunt wants to set me up with this girl who has a great personality. And then Harry will like roll his eyes. And they do that for a couple episodes before it's the school dance. He had nobody to ask for the school dance. He tried to ask Betty Brant, who's like 20, I think. And she's like,
which is
that's really sweet, Peter, but no thank you.
Reference to the Sam Raimi movies. In the comics, Betty is like one of his first girlfriends.
Oh,
they're the same age in high school to get together and stuff. Yeah, it's Betty and Liz are like the first kind of couple love interests in high school. And then he gets to college. And that's when he meets Gwen Stacy, and it's her for a long time. And then, he's like, "Hey, I hear MJ has a great personality," and that goes on for so long, and you don't see her. And if you do see her in a panel, it's almost the like they're all covered up except for her feet, or except for like you don't see her. And then we get the like shot thing of he opens the door and is just stunned at how beautiful she is, and she has the famous line, "Face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot." Just so confident, right?
It's I never knew the original canonicity of Betty Brant. I always presumed it was what I saw in the Sam Raimi version, and then they twisted into the one from the John Watts version. So thank you for telling me what Betty Brant actually started as. I didn't know. But he has no date for the dance at the last minute, and she's like, well, there's this girl I've been telling you about. So they bring her in as a date, and he's like, wow, she's really pretty, but they don't hit it off like that right away. I really like that they establish MJ as a girl who likes to flirt, but isn't in for a relationship right now. She's like, I just like having fun with people. Like, she's really easygoing and casual and breezy and confident. Right. So there's not really any hint of a romance between the two of them in this season.
Yeah.
He's focused on Gwen and on Liz. So I liked also, the rotation between different love interests he could have also. Like I said, there's just a lot going on here. It is pretty dense for the format that it is, a kid cartoon.
Yeah. Which I think Spider-Man, there's a couple comic book characters that really lend themselves to this style of storytelling. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but they have such a large cast that, you can have like you can have certain characters play the long game. They get introduced, and it maybe takes a season and a half to like for them to come into their own. There's a couple plot threads in this cartoon that has not like it never got to finish because the characters hadn't been revealed yet, or stuff like that. I will say that the character that the show leads you to believe that the big man is, it's not who the big man is in the comics. And it like the character that he is in the comics is in the show. He's right there, and so it's like. They are setting this up for the big reveal on this stuff. There's I will go ahead.
No, I just want to say that when they said the big man, my immediate thought was, Kingpin. Because even though he's primarily a Daredevil villain, like he's the villain in Into the Spider-Verse, where he is
Spider-Man.
huge.
Yeah.
There's never been a bigger man than Wilson Fisk in Into the Spider-Verse. So I thought I had the jump on the series. I'm like, I know who they mean by the big man. And then it's L. Thompson Lincoln, a character I've never heard of, and nobody brings up
Tombstone.
Wilson Fisk.
Yeah. Yeah. Like Spider-Man has his Sinister Six, like the more famous of the villains.
Yeah.
But Spider-Man also deals a lot with like the crime families of New York in the same way that Batman might deal with the Falcones or something like that. And so it's interesting to see him go from these more like bombastic super villains to these more like Godfather like characters. But minor spoilers, I guess not spoilers for the show since it doesn't get revealed. But the big man is Frederick Foswell, the other reporter that's been at the Bugle for a long time, that has the fake identity with the patches. It's him. He's the one manipulating stuff. Yeah.
I did not. Yeah. I mean, see, this is stuff I couldn't see coming.
Like at the end of the day, could the show have changed it and pivoted away from that? Sure. Yes. They do change some things in the show. And, you know, mix and match from different sources. But that is just kind of another example of like, here's this character that's introduced early on. He's kind of he's in the background through most of it, but he's there. Like you see him at the Bugle. You see him as his Patch's identity, like trying to play undercover and stuff like that. It could be that in season 2 he gets found out and stuff like that. Another example of that would be Miles Warren, the scientist that takes over Dr. Kirk Connor's lab. He was one of in the comics, he was one of Peter and Gwen's high school, college science professors. He's the one that is responsible for cloning Peter Parker. And the whole Ben Reilly clone saga, all that stuff. He turns into the villain, the Jackal, which is again like who is that for most, right? But yeah, he ends up cloning Gwen Stacy at some point too. Like it's a whole big thing. But yeah, I like that they can play this long game, but then also immediately have stuff like, well, here's the Lizard, here's here's the Green Goblin, just right away, just like here's all of these, and it feels like a lot. But then you still have these like in the background. Here's the plot, right? That's good. It's fun. I enjoy it a lot. Good stuff with that. Let's talk a little bit more about the like high school aspect of this, because I think it had been a while since I had watched this, so I didn't remember exactly like what the major plots were in the show when I pitched it. And I think there's a thing on their Wikipedia that I had read off that was like each season focuses on a semester in school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And now having rewatched the show, I don't necessarily think that's true.
I think approximately it is 13 episodes for fall season, 13 episodes for spring semester.
Time does pass. We do get like a Halloween episode, a Thanksgiving episode.
Yeah.
Right.
Valentine's Day. Yeah, I did like that.
But I feel like I was kind of expecting them to also mark time with like exams and stuff of like, oh, here's the end of the semester exams or stuff like that. And I think it was just less like, oh, this season revolves around this semester than I was expecting. But I like a lot of the school stuff. I like that is mixed in there too, because that also is part of the like Spider-Man Peter Parker drama. it's like he just has a lot going on all
He
the time.
does. Yeah, I will say it's a lot more about the social pressures of school and less about the
It's high
academic
school.
pressures. Yeah, well, I mean, it's never like an exam is not a big plot point, you know. It's not like he has to fight Doc Ock and also get home in time to write a term paper. Like his academic performance is not as big of a factor as maybe I would have liked to have seen it been. But there is a lot of social stuff. There's dances, tries out for the football team, you know, tries out for the school play, all this stuff. There's a lot of events like carnivals and things he's going to with his peers. You see them a lot.
Mhm.
I did like that cast of characters. I like that it included a lot of girls, but every girl is somebody's love interest. Like there's a lot of women in the cast who are somebody's girlfriend. And I like that Peter's got his dedicated love interest, and it's not like, I have a crush on every girl. But I would have liked if he had.
Team Squad.
I would have liked if he had like more platonic connections with girls that outside of like, do I like her? Does she like me? Like I have a crush on this girl, or she has a crush on me, or she teases me, like it's Sally Averill. I would have liked to
Right.
have seen, I just have to work on a project with Glory. You know, oh, it turns out Shashawn Wynn rides the same bus as me and notices that I'm falling asleep on the bus every morning. Could she sense that I'm Spider-Man?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think of that cast, I don't remember Sally or Shashawn being a thing in the comics. Even in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, I don't think they're really a thing. So they might be new for this show. But yeah, like it is high school. They do all kind of pair off, right? There is some pettiness between the characters when they see like their partner talking to someone else and just being like, what's happening here? This is illegal. This can't happen. I think everyone is pretty true to the characters though, which I like. I like that they introduce you to like D-list Spider-Man like side characters like Kong. It's like, yes, I'm so glad that Kong is in this cartoon. Or like Glory, who is like Glory is someone that I don't think Peter ever dated. They maybe flirted a little bit here and there and was like, what if, maybe? And then they were just like, I don't think so. But like she ends up being like a really good like platonic friend for Peter down the road. Yeah, I think they have a great cast of characters in their in high school and all the stuff that they can do, because he has his like nerdy friend in Harry, who, like I said at the start, they say they're best friends, but in the 26 episodes we got, like Peter just treats him like dirt all the time.
I think they do introduce conflict pretty early in that relationship. I also would have seen I would have liked to have seen more status quo between Peter and Harry, so we had more of a baseline of what do these two people do together for fun? What are their bonds? How long have they known each other?
Yeah. That I think that would have been fantastic. Like, he obviously does care about him, but it's also the same way that he cares about everyone else. Like, he won't let Flash get hurt. Like, he won't, but he's not best friends with Flash, despite what Flash's mom thinks at the end, right? Which was great. But yeah, like I would have liked to see more of them actually being best buds and like being a team. Like, Spider-Man is a character that is famous for his team ups in the comics too. And I think you can do that same concept in the high school area, right? Where it's like, here he is teaming up with Harry. Here he is teaming up with Glory. Here he is teaming up with whoever, right? Um, and I think it would have been sweet to see like his team up with Harry, and they just whatever it is, like they are knocking it out of the park. Like they are in
Yeah.
sync and just like they know each
Yes.
other. They have been best friends, and I think that would have been really neat. But we
Yeah.
don't truly get that. We're just kind of told that they're best
Mm.
friends, and then
Mm.
Harry gets hooked on Mountain Dew and turns evil, and right?
I want to say
Globulin green.
I really liked what they did with the Green Goblin. Across the season, there are plenty of times where the show legitimately surprised me with a plot twist. Like,
Yeah,
it is challenging enough for an adult viewer while not being over challenging for a 7-year-old. I think it hits a really nice specific balance with its storytelling. So, of course, you go in having seen the Sam Raimi movies thinking, oh, Norman Osborn, Green Goblin. It's in the comic books, I guess. My main baseline is the Sam Raimi movies. And then you find out that it is Peter, that it is Harry, and that Harry has been taking globulin green, which is some like performance enhancer that Oscorp has been taking. He's
he
been taking
describes it
it.
as a soda, and it's this like lime green soda. And so that's
Yes.
why I'm just like,
Yeah,
it's Mountain Dew.
Yeah, he's just doing test tubes of Mountain Dew, and that makes him strong enough to like get onto the football team. And he's doing all this because he's like, I want my dad to be proud of me. Like you have a Norman Osborn who's not as much of a jerk as we've seen in any of the live action movies, but still distant, has his standards way too high. Harry can never meet him.
Mhm.
He does have a mom who is alive in this show, but she also seems just distant, just silent, just sort of walking through the background of a room, sitting there at the dinner table, eating and not talking to anybody. So Harry's got a very cold family life, and he starts taking the globulin green to do better at school, just be stronger, smarter, faster, all of that. And then he comes to the realization, I've been blacking out. I turned into the Green Goblin, and I've been doing Green Goblin things to try. I think it was like the Green Goblin was taking out Oscorp's rivals, so that was another subconscious way that he was trying to like win his dad's affection. Like, look how much I'm doing
He
for the family
over
business.
he hears a
Yeah.
conversation between his dad and Hammerhead. So like
Mm.
they actually do the work to like put everything in place to be like, yes, it is possible
Yeah.
that he could be the one.
Yes.
Of course, like he does actually know this stuff. It makes sense. Which I think some other shows might have like not put in the work and tried to be like,
Mm.
but it was him, right? And then it was just like, but that doesn't really add up. And then they do like a
Yeah.
flash
Yeah.
back, and it's just like, all right, you're
Uh-huh.
trying, but no, this
Mm.
show puts in the work and lays the clues.
Yeah. And then Harry has to go to rehab for globulin green. I like that we had a kid appropriate take on a substance abuse issue in
Yeah, which
this
is
show.
true
That
to his character too in from the
I
comics. Yeah.
see, that was something I hadn't encountered with a Harry before, except for when he's really getting into the power of the Green Goblin juice or whatever. I think like the Dane DeHaan one does that in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, maybe. But I like that it shows the fallout of that. Like, Harry is gone for several episodes while he's in this rehab, and then he comes back and he has to sort of reintegrate himself into the high school landscape. And while he was on the globulin green, he like joined the football team. He was part of the team that like won this big championship. And later, like months later, Flash accuses him of going off on some fancy European vacation with his parents or whatever. And he's like, no, I had a problem. I was abusing that thing and I had to go away. Like, he's trying to get some sort of sympathy from Flash. And Flash, instead of being like, oh, I didn't know you were going through that, I'm sorry I accused you of just slacking off and going on vacation. Flash takes another approach and he's like, you were on substances while we won that championship. That jeopardizes the championship. That's null and void now.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that episode, you find out that he reported it to the high school or the football association or whatever. And the big trophy is taken out of the Midtown High School lobby. Like, yeah, you're disqualified. It was not fair that you won that. And Flash is like, something I really like about the show is that it gives its antagonistic characters like a good feature that is seen by Peter. Peter sees Flash as a jerk. He's this like hotshot quarterback, but when he plays, he does play fair. He abides by the rules. If something goes wrong, he will own up to it, even if it takes away his big championship status.
Yeah. Yeah. I really enjoy Flash Thompson a lot. I get like one of my favorite things for him is that he picks on Peter Parker. He's a bully. He's kind of mean every now and then. But man, is he the biggest Spider-Man fan in the world, and will do anything for Spider-Man just to get his approval and just to hear good job, right? Like he just like Spider-Man senpai, notice me. And like I like that kind of back and forth because Peter can play with that, and also like deep down he realizes that Flash is a good person. And that's kind of why he puts up with the bullying at school. Like he's just like at the end of the day, I know that's not who he is. Like he's kind of acting out in front of his friends. Again, he's in high school. Like this is not what he's gonna be like when he's an adult down the road. And Flash, I think, ends up being one of the more important characters in Peter's life in general, and not just in this show. I know in the comics, like after high school, he ends. I think he might go to college for a little bit, but I think he drops out, and that's when he joins the military. He comes back and he's paralyzed from the waist down, eventually becomes Venom. All of this stuff. There was an issue in the comics, a more modern day one. I think this was in the middle of Dan Slott's first big run on him. I don't remember exactly, but it's like it's the end of his run as Venom. Something is happening, and like Peter has to kind of reveal who he is to him. And, like as Flash is dying, and it is just this big heartfelt moment of like, you were Peter Parker all along. I'm so sorry. I picked on you my whole life, like all of this stuff. And he's just like, no, you were amazing. So yeah, it's great stuff.
Sweet.
But yeah, I like that Flash is the one to turn like this in and notify the authorities, because everyone else thinks like, Harry, like, why would you turn yourself in and like do all of this stuff? And he was like, no, that was Flash who notified this. Like he was the one that did the right thing. So that was good.
Yeah, very, very noble. It also does a lot, not a lot, but enough for J. Jonah Jameson. Such a blowhard, such a hard ass. But he's got the same feature like I know he has in the comics, where he protects his sources. If you work for J. Jonah Jameson and you are loyal and somebody comes to him like, tell me who takes all the pictures of Spider-Man, he will not give up Peter Parker's name. Like he takes care of his people. And he's so genuinely loving and proud of his son in a way that is really touching. Always. Yeah. And there's an episode where Aunt May and Grandma Watson go to some Broadway play, which stars the same actor who comes back later as the guest theater teacher at the school. Okay. I really like that continuity. But yeah, then there's some big fight, in the city street, and she sees it and she gets stressed out and she has a heart attack. And of course, Peter's off doing Spider-Man things. He didn't, he's fighting whoever the villain was. I don't remember. But like he completely misses this. And when J. Jonah Jameson learns about it, he's like very somberly like, I will call Parker. I know what his aunt means to him. I want to be the one to tell him this. Like I owe him. This news comes from the top. And he like really softens up. And there was another very sweet aspect of the show is when all the kids at high school find out that Aunt May had this heart attack. She's in the hospital. Everybody is really sympathetic. I liked that the kids in Peter's school, regardless of how they feel about Peter, know that he lives with his Aunt May. And like nobody teases him for it. They all like Aunt May, even if they don't like Peter. Separate of their feelings
Aunt
for
May's
Peter,
great.
they're like, we all respect Aunt May. We all want to take care of her.
Yeah, indeed. This version of Aunt May is a lot more along the lines of what we see in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. She's a little bit younger. She's a little more spunky.
A little bit.
I mean, she's still older. She's still gray, right? But
she's older than Sally Field, younger than Rosemary Harris on the range of Aunt May's.
Yeah. Not as young as Marissa Tomei,
yes.
But right. And like that is I've come to really appreciate that version of Aunt May when she's still spry. She can still get up and do things. And she's not always completely helpless.
Yes.
One of the things as a big Spider-Man fan in the comics, I'm sorry, but Aunt May's got to go. Like, she's still around. How? She has been a dinosaur for so long, and it like they try to do content, like they try to do progression of like, oh well, she's doing fine, and oh, she has a heart attack. Oh, she's now flirting with Dr. Octopus. That's weird. Oh, now she's dating J. Jonah Jameson. That's strange too, which is a thing that happens in the comics. So like they try to give her new things in the comics to do, but it just seems kind of ridiculous that she's still like still here, and it's just like, I mean, good for her, but wow, okay.
We all wish we had the Aunt May secret.
Right.
I like that this Aunt May,
it's Maybelline, I don't know.
Right. she's got these like bangs. She's got kind of a cool haircut for a lady of her age, and she's working on, of course, Aunt May's like always cooking stuff. And there's a point where Peter notices, wow, you're cooking a lot of things. And then you find out she's been working on a cookbook to like support her and Peter. She's like, I'm going to sell all these recipes I do. And then when she has the heart attack, she's like, I guess I'll have to make a healthier cookbook now. Maybe I ate too much rich food testing all those recipes. I like whenever Aunt May has like some sort of a profession or a purpose unto herself that isn't just caring for Peter, even if it's like, I am earning money that will go to Peter.
Even just hanging out with MJ's grandma, right? Like, give her
she's got a social life.
I think that helps a lot. But I do like the younger, spunkier Aunt May. She's just fun, right? But yeah, that is more like the Ultimate Comics. Something else that's more like the Ultimate Comics is Eddie Barack working for Connors in the lab there, and that like his family knew the Parker family, and they died together. They were working on like they were all scientists together. That is a lot like the Ultimate Comics.
I did appreciate the variety of, you've got all these kids in high school, and then you've got a couple of characters who are just a little older, college age, like Eddie Brock and Betty Brant in this world.
Right. I appreciate that, because it gives Peter some people to kind of not necessarily look up to per se, but I think just an older person that he could potentially go to for advice. Not that you would really go to Eddie for advice, but I could see like that platonic relationship with Betty, like being something like that. Like, hey, I'm having trouble in school, or here's what's happening with me and Gwen. Like, what do I do? And her like being able to like kind of relate and be like, hey, I was in your situation 4 years ago. Like, that's not like, here's what I did. Here's how I got to where I am now. Like, I think something like that is really cool for him to have in high school.
Yeah, somebody who is in between a peer and an authority figure, I think is a nice
Yes.
level to add to his world. I do want to say briefly, I like that we spend a little bit of time with the other Daily Bugle staff. Not
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot, but enough that it's noticeable. Like, you know, the names and faces of the other people there.
Ned
They're not just sort
Leeds,
of all
Foswell,
amorphous
Betty,
people. Yeah.
Robertson. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Um, yeah, those are all super important characters in his life. In the comics, Betty and Ned end up getting married.
Mm.
Um, they're a thing. Like I said, Foswell turns out to be the big man. Um, yeah. It's neat to he has all of these different pockets, and that I think is what's so cool about Spider-Man is that you can tell a
Yeah.
story in each one, or you can tell a big one that kind of has bits and pieces in all
Yeah.
of them. Like you could absolutely tell an investigative journalism story with
Mm.
Spider-Man. Like he has the characters to fit that. You could tell an organized crime story with him. You could tell a like superhero bombastic,
Yeah.
flying in the sky stuff with that. You can
Yeah.
tell a sci-fi alien
Yes.
story with that. Like
I
there's
do
so much.
I do want to say that when the alien symbiote is introduced when John Jameson's ship has trouble coming in for a landing. That's a whole episode where everybody's really tensely watching the news. And J. Jonah Jameson is calling like one of the Beagle staff who's right there, like at Cape Canaveral or whatever. Like, I want to hear it from you. I don't want to hear it from the news. If my son has died, really high stakes there. But like, that's how you get the alien symbiote. It's clinging to the outside of the ship. And there's all these
Which
news
then the
about
Venom
it.
movie borrowed
Yeah.
years later. Like that just makes
Mm.
sense. Like, oh, he's in space, so let's put
Yeah.
the space thing on the thing that
Yeah. Yeah.
returns to Earth. Good
Hmm.
stuff.
But it's on the news. Like, there's some sort of alien substance here on this not spaceship, a rocket that landed. Spaceships come from space to Earth. Earth, if it goes from Earth to space, that's a good old American
A
rocket.
shuttle? Yeah. A
Sure.
rocket?
A
Oh, well, who knows?
spacecraft. But the alien goes stuck to it, and it's on the news. Like, what is this? When are we going to find out more? Is this alien life? And the sample of it ends up going to the Connors lab at fictional Empire State University for study. And Peter's on the outs with them because while Spider-Man helped cure Dr. Connors of being a lizard, in the eyes of Dr. Connors and his wife, Peter disappeared. Peter was not there to help when he should have.
Mm.
So they're like, Peter, you are no longer an intern at the lab. Like, we don't want to talk to you. So they've kind of iced him out. So Peter can't get in there to check it out. So he goes as Spider-Man. And I like that he goes just as a science nerd. I think that was a really nice thing to see from this character who, like, yeah, we know it's smart about science because he goes to these internships and he builds stuff for himself. He builds a suit and whatever. But to see him just be interested in a scientific news story, not as a superhero, like, what is this possible threat? Will I have to fight it? Just as
Right.
a kid who's like, wow, I want to look at a cool science thing. I'm going to sneak in there as
Alien
Spider-Man because I
Let me
can't
go
do it as
check it
Peter.
out.
Yeah, I liked seeing that just sort of innocent enthusiasm from him.
Absolutely.
Another brief detail I want to share based off of him building things for
please.
himself. I love the detail that so the season starts at the beginning of the fall semester. You can imagine that the fateful field trip where he gets bit by the spider was like at the end of spring semester. Maybe he was learning to actually be Spider-Man over summer. I really like that as the show progresses through natural time, it gets to winter and he's like, oh, I built the suit in hot weather. I have to adapt it now that it's cold. How do I make my suit warm?
Yeah. That is a like Spider-Man being a science nerd
Yes.
and inventing like the web shouters and all of that stuff. He is really someone that tinkers with his own suits and tries to be like, how can I like make it good for hot weather and cold weather, or
Yeah.
have one for each situation.
Mhm.
Now I'm up against Shocker or
Yeah.
Electro. How do I like ground my suit in a weird? Can I like rubberize it in a weird? Like he ends up having to like make multiple suits or have things built into the suit that helps him with all of these villains. Which is neat and also is expensive, and he has to buy all of these parts.
Yeah.
And then he's struggling to like, I need to buy a camera for the Bugle so I can make money to
Yeah.
support Aunt May, but also it's cold and I need to buy thermals. So do I
Yeah.
buy thermals first so I can continue helping the city, which is then gives me the job at the Bugle because I get to take pictures of
Yes.
Spider-Man. So do I wait on that? I don't know. What's happening.
He has so
shit.
much to do all the time. Yeah. And I like how the other characters will try and meet him halfway. Like when Aunt May finds out he's been taking photos for the Bugle, she's like, thank you. I'm sorry you have to do this, but thank you. Tell you what, I will take. You save 10% of every paycheck and you buy yourself a new camera with that, and I will take the rest. Or like every time he has to leave, his friends are going ice skating or whatever, and he's to leave to do Spider-Man stuff, and he comes back and he's like, I had to take photos for the Bugle. And his friends are mad, but they're always like, I know you need that money.
Yeah.
You have to earn that to help Aunt May, and I can't argue against that. Like that sort of continual conflict that doesn't really have an answer. Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to shift gears a little bit here. Is there anything in the cartoon that didn't sit well with you, that you did not like as much?
Everybody's pupil is just like a big round circle of a color. Like they just have an iris and no pupil. I think that was a bit of an adjustment at first. Although it does look cool. It works when Kurt Connors transforms into the lizard and then like the animation style of his eye entirely changes. Yeah, like that was neat. I like that.
Yeah, the art style is very stylized, but I think also lends itself well to when it needs to kind of be more realistic and focus on like the high school characters or the people at the paper, right? Like it's realistic enough that it's almost reminiscent of stuff you saw in like Batman the Animated Series or stuff like that. But then, yeah, when it is stylized, when it does the like Green Goblin stuff or Mysterio and all, like it can be so stylized that it's like it's almost an acquired taste to get into this style. It's not so harsh that you're just like, whoa, what's happening? But you're just like, okay,
yeah,
maybe not, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah,
there.
and like I said earlier, I wish he had more platonic female friends where any aspect of romance didn't enter the picture. Like you said, friends who were like, oh, we're both in history class together. We help each other on our papers or whatever, or we play the same video game when I have time to play video games.
Sure. Yeah. I think something like that would have been nice. Things I did not like about the show. I don't like that they turned Kraven into a beast, right? That he is then like this lion character. Like that whole thing was just weird.
I guess, see, I have no context for any of this. There are very few things I know about the comics. So I don't know when something happens if it is new or not. Maybe there's a classic story where Kraven did turn into some sort of lion man and everybody's like, right, you know the Kraven Lion Man story. But I understand that if that is brand new, it doesn't sit well.
Well, Melissa, what about the time when John Jameson, Jonah's son, gets turned into a werewolf? Do you think that's true or not? Because it is.
I've heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, like, but yeah, I think like I see how they get there of
Mm.
like he is a hunter of beasts. What if he turns into beasts? It fits with
Mhm.
like the rhino being right there. Spider-Man also another animal themed thing. There's the lizard, right? Like it makes sense. It's like I see how
Mhm.
you got there.
Yeah.
But I don't like that is kind of what's interesting to me about Craven is that he becomes the beast metaphorically in
Mm.
like he is still human, but he learns to hunt it by like starting to think like it and stuff like that. And one of his more famous stories is where he kills Peter Parker, takes up the mantle of Spider-Man, and tries to do it better. And like stuff like that, I think is really neat. Instead of being like, but what if he's actually a lion man, right? Um, so that was a little strange. Also, Mysterio. I was not a big fan of this version of Mysterio. I
Mhm.
like I like that. It's like half and half. The aspect that I like about Mysterio is that he is into the like Hollywood movie special
Yeah.
effects and stuff like that. That's perfect. I love that. Um, but then the fact that he's more like, what if Doctor Strange was evil? Like that's how he
Yeah.
acts, and he just seems like a wizard.
Yes.
Is I was like, I don't really like that version of him.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. Like it seemed more like he was casting spells than
Yeah.
stuff, which I was just like, I could. He doesn't need to do all of that. Um, but oh well,
I will
you know.
I will say this is not a specific qualm with this show. This is something that happens frequently in a lot of media where kids are teasing other kids in a school setting and it gets so harsh that you're like, no teacher is stepping in to say, hey, cut that out. Some of the barbs these kids throw at each other get kind of mean.
They do. It's par for the course, unfortunately. Um, yeah, that like that is an interesting thing though, is like in Spider-Man cast of characters, you don't really hear much about like his high school teachers or stuff.
Yeah.
You hear about his college professors. And in a sense,
Yes.
I think that makes sense for the most part. Like if you
Mhm.
are if you are proficient in a certain subject, I feel like your college professors are truly the ones that help to shape you
Mhm.
or challenge you in that way. Whereas high school, they might be proud of you if they still like, not if they still remember your, if you still remember them, they'd be like, oh yeah, I remember you, right? Like good, you go, Peter Parker, you made a company down the road. Good for
Mm.
you. I don't know. Like I know some people have the experience of having like a high school age teacher, and not high school age teacher, high school like grade level teacher that
Mm.
really impacted them in that way. But you don't see that in the Spider-Man comics, and so you don't see it in the show,
Yeah.
which is interesting. And so yeah, like there's one teacher there. I forget his name. And that's kind of it. And then you get the you get the guest theater
Yeah.
teacher that comes in down the road. And so yeah, the teachers are almost just non-existent in the show,
Mhm.
which is interesting. You have all of these like he looks up to scientists in the real
Yes.
world. He looks up to Kurt
Yes.
Connors, Miles Warren, Norman Osborn, stuff like that. Um,
Mhm.
so
I want to talk a little bit about some of the specific episodes. I mentioned that I really like what the show
go
does with
ahead. Yeah.
episode structures. Like we've got a whole black and white flashback to Uncle Ben episode. We have an episode where everybody's trying out for the school play. So interspersed between Spider-Man fighting whoever the foe was that week, you get all these cutaways to all of his high school peers just like on a dark stage, under a spotlight, giving you some pivotal lines of Shakespeare that echo what Peter is going through. And it's all
Yeah.
the different characters. They all say it different ways. Sally Averill like cheers hers.
Yeah, yeah, she is like I don't like her character, but I think she fits so well.
Yeah.
Just with the red, like the one that has the like really standout accent, like, oh yeah, you're
Yes.
from New York. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's just like everything is cheer. Yeah, good stuff.
Like there's that. There's an episode where a bunch of the criminals are having a clandestine meeting in a private box in an opera house.
I love
So you get this
yeah,
opera
that
backdrop. It's very Quantum of Solace. So there's real opera like covering the whole episode. They do need like background juxtapositions like that to whatever it is Peter is going through.
Yeah, I like that one a lot, especially because the opera one is mostly the like criminal underworld. Like it is the heads of the crime families in that one that are kind of joking it out. Eventually, the Doc Ock shows up, but right, like you have Tombstone and Silver Sable and Silvermane there and Hammerhead there, and it is this like Godfather at like this opera thing is happening while this big fight, like it's as close as they can get to a gangster movie, and it works. It's kind of neat. Like I really liked that one a lot. And then we kind of alluded to it, but the very last episode is Flash's birthday, and they're doing the thing where it's like the camcorder recording all of the characters having some special message to him, which I don't know when it came out, but reminded me a lot of Cloverfield, where it starts with that party.
Yes.
Right? And they're all like having those birthday messages, stuff like that. Let me see if I can look that up when it came out. Stuff like that.
Yes, like that episode, it is the final episode listed in all of them. They're on Disney Plus.
2008.
I think it is
when Cloverfield came out. So that may have
probably not. I don't know.
Like it's right around the same time. I don't know exactly, but yeah.
That final episode, I think it must have aired later, and that's why Disney Plus puts it final in the episode run, because that is not where it goes in continuity. I think that episode must have been like the very beginning of the spring semester, because that's like when they introduce, here are your guest teachers for the semester. I think that's when Shashawn Wynn enters. That's when like Harry comes back from rehab. Like it's a check-in on the Eddie Brock Venom storyline. And the main villain fight that Spider-Man has is Sandman, and it involves like an oil tanker like catching on fire, and I wonder if maybe that had happened recently and it was too sensitive, so they had to push it a while
around that time. I think that was that the Exxon one that happened.
I don't remember.
I think it was at Exxon. I remember it happening and it being a thing on the news, but I was young enough where I didn't care about any of that stuff, and I was just like, I'm gonna play my video games, read my comics, stuff like that. So
so it is weird that the season ends with this big reveal that Harry was never the Green Goblin. Norman was the Green Goblin, and he pinned it on Harry, which is so harsh. Like
breaks his leg, like almost at the end there.
Breaks his son's leg to mirror the own injury that he got fighting Peter as the Green Goblin, so that Peter will think Harry has been the Green Goblin. And the whole episode, you're wondering, is whoever this Green Goblin is, if it isn't Norman and it isn't Harry, who is the third person who's like taken on the Green Goblin mantle? And then the reveal that the Green Goblin is Norman, and Norman has been the shapeshifter guy. That was a big surprise for me. Chameleon. Thank you.
So here's the thing with that. You said like this is also good for adults because there's a few surprises in there. If you're unfamiliar with like the Chameleon or Miles Warren and stuff like that, you like there is it could be anyone, and there is a moment as I was watching this because because Harry Osborn's mom really isn't in the show, and then oddly is like
Yes.
prominently seen in one scene in this end of like, who is the Green Goblin
Yeah.
really? And so you have this thought of like, is it his mom somehow? Like,
Yes,
has
that's
she
what I
been
was
in this?
thinking.
And they have a moment in there where they mention that, like, could it be his mom? And they're just like, nah. But if you know the cast of characters a little bit more, you have two options on the board, right? You have Chameleon, who is a master of disguise, and then you have Miles Warren, who is known for cloning. So you're like, is this Miles Warren? Did he clone Osborn somehow? Like, what's happening here? And yeah, it turns out to be the chameleon, but it's one of those things, like, even if you know, like, you don't really know, and it's hard to, like, there's
Yeah.
options here. It's like, huh,
Yes.
interesting. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's good stuff. But yeah, you're right. I can see how that may have been at the start and got pushed back, that final episode there. But I also kind of like that as a final episode setup for season 3. Because yeah, they do a lot of flashbacks, but that's, I think, also a good way for them to introduce something a little bit more. Like they start to bring the venom back a little bit in the. I mean, again, this whole thing is a flashback, so we do see the conclusion of that kind of. But it's just like it would have been an interesting way for them to like set up stuff in season 3 if they had a season 3 to continue into and stuff like that. But I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well. 2 seasons, 26 episodes. It was good though. I really enjoyed watching this a lot. I'm glad we got to talk about this on the show.
Yeah, I like only vaguely remembered this show happening. I think it is the art style of like the full circle dots of a plain color in the eyes. I think like that is a visual detail I remembered that separated this from other cartoons around the time. But I was really surprised when you're like, this cartoon from 2008 is one of the greatest Spider-Man adaptations. And I just barely knew it.
Yeah, it's so true to what Spider-Man is as a character. Like I'm of the mind that superhero movies, superhero adaptations, like all that stuff, as long as they get things as close as they can to the origin story, you can kind of go in any direction you want. Of course, it will ring more true if this stuff is true to these characters and how they act and stuff like that, and you're not changing things drastically in that regard. I mean, because that's what the comics are at the end of the day. They're just making stories up as they go, right? So I think this is an interesting example of them mixing from all these different sources, changing things slightly, to both fit their narrative or to simplify them. Like for example, Liz Allen's brother in this.
Oh yes,
like he is a character that shows up in the comics. He in the comics, however, he is her step brother, so not like blood related, and has a different last name as her, so you don't initially know that they are step brothers and they're related in that way. But yeah, he's the Molten Man. If you guys have seen the MCU and seen Spider-Man Far From Home, is that the one where he's in on the field trip? Yeah, that like molten character that he's fighting, that's him. Okay. That's what, at least what they're alluding to in the
Okay.
MCU is like, oh, that's supposed to be Molten Man. So
that is something that bugged me slightly, just in that I didn't totally buy that a high schooler was really into horse race gambling. Like, who
yeah,
is taking your bets? Who is like, yeah, I accept this bet because
I'm a high
definitely
schooler.
this 17-year-old can pay me $5,000. If it had
Good
been like
Lord.
online gaming gambling or something, it would have made a little bit more sense to me. This felt like a
Hey, Peter,
real
have you
old
heard of
school plot
cyber
line.
gambling?
Right. If he was addicted to a poker website, I would have liked it a little bit more.
Exactly. Have you heard of Beyblade gambling? Yeah. Yeah, that was a weird storyline that I also felt like didn't work exactly. I don't know. Like,
It's I mean, it is an issue to talk about. I just found it not quite as likely that a fellow high schooler would be in severe
like,
gambling debt on horse races of all things.
compared to Harry getting addicted
Yes.
to Goblin Green, which felt more appropriate.
Yes.
That it like sure, they can have a storyline like that. I just don't think the one that they had fit worked as well. But yeah, good show. I'm glad we got to talk about this finally. I am going to pull up Bingo so we can do a bingo check-in and see where we are.
Ugh.
Let's see.
The Google Doodle for Mother's Day is really cute this year.
Oh, nice. I don't think we have if I'm here and you're here, who's driving the bus? No treasure map, no big puddle splash, no mocap character. No time to eat breakfast. Do we get a diary entry in this anywhere?
I
think so.
I don't think so, but I'll tell you what we do get. We get a butler.
We do get a butler. Yeah. We get a great scene where he like walks out of the statue's like, Norman, Harry, Spider-Man. Right.
We have that. We have cat burglary. Did we no, Mary Jane was wearing like a black dress to prom. Oh, no, was when Gwen Stacy gets does Gwen Stacy, when MJ kind of gives her a makeover, is she wearing a red dress?
I feel like there is a red dress somewhere in here, but I don't remember exactly.
I feel like she is red or something like that. I'm gonna put it down. I have to collect 3 sexy red dresses over the course of the year. Sexy here in big quotation marks because we are talking about high schoolers, but you know the concept of wow, you stepped out in this one specific outfit and you're now 10 times hotter. It's that I'm tracking.
Crashing a fancy party. I feel like we can mark that down because Tombstone had that like fancy party and it's Green Goblin that crashes it. So I guess that's a question then. Are we distinguishing like it has to be the main character that crashes no main protagonists?
I'd say,
or is it okay that Green Goblin crashed a fancy party here?
Yes. Anybody can do it. A villain definitely counts.
Good stuff there. I think that might be it for me.
Yeah, I don't think I have any new bingos, but I'm closing in.
Yeah, we're getting there. I have 2 bingos at the moment. Cool. Good stuff. I think that is our bingo update. Let's see here. Bring that back around, which means, Melissa, I will toss it to you for recommendations. If people enjoy this, what else might they enjoy?
The few things I do know about old school Spider-Man comic continuity come from a book we read back for Valentine's Day 2019, which was Spider-Man Blue. This was a graphic novel from Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. It's about an adult Peter Parker who's married to Mary Jane, and he is still grieving the classic death of Gwen Stacy when he was younger. And it's about
Hmm.
him sort of going through like an old memory box and just like writing her a letter. Like, Gwen, if you were still alive, this is what I would want to say to you. So it's like a flashback story about their romance, how she died, and then how MJ was there for him to help heal him up, and then their romance. It's a
Yeah.
really sweet story.
Yeah. A little bit on the sad side, but
Yes, melancholy. Yeah.
great book nonetheless. And yeah, I think
Hmm.
deals a lot with like this era of Peter Parker's life. Well, I guess in the comics it was college, but here in the cartoon, right, it was all
Mm.
high school stuff. So
Yeah,
good stuff.
we talked about
That's a
that
good
way back on episode 44 of the
That's a
review
good one.
show.
Mm-hmm.
And since you mentioned it earlier, uh, also even earlier than that, like our first October of the review show, we did talk about Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. We talked
We
about
did,
season 1
yeah.
of that show. This was a show on Cartoon Network from like 2010, I think, so shortly after this time period.
Mhm.
That is a Scooby-Doo retake. They look the same, they do all the same stuff, but they don't travel around. They are in one specific small town. And as they solve these mysteries of the week, they start to figure out that there is a bigger mystery and there's something weird that's been going on in their town for generations.
It's a
So it's
good
all
one.
this classic Scooby-Doo stuff you like, but with a real uh serious, committed, compelling, like ongoing mystery structure to it, and more uh sort of teen romance drama going on.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I really like that adaptation. I think that one's really strong.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Do you remember which one episode we covered that one on? Did you mention?
Let me see. I know it was
I can
early.
see
My
here.
podcast app, yeah, I don't have it. We like
25.
switched. Thank you. We like switched
Long time ago.
podcast hosts or whatever. And the way it shows up in my app is that there's a couple missing from around that
Interesting.
transition time. Yeah. But I use a weird podcast app nobody else uses. So,
Okay.
uh, and I just want to shout out another cartoon from around this time, also on Disney Channel. Tonally very different, but it's a personal favorite of mine. I love Phineas and Ferb. I just want
Sure.
people to know Phineas and Ferb is legitimately excellent. That show is so funny. It's so well crafted. It's got no drama. It's very silly. It is 100% a comedy, except when it's also a musical. Did you know every episode of Phineas and Ferb features an original musical number?
Did not know that. I have not seen Phineas and Ferb.
Throw it on sometime. I find that it's so charming. It's legit one of my favorite shows.
Cool. Good stuff.
This kid's cartoon from when I was in college. One of my favorite shows.
Cool. I will add Ben 10 to the list.
Yes.
Also something that we have covered here on the show way back on episode 84. Ben 10 is one of my more favorite cartoons, it's especially of this like age group, or like target audience age group is what I mean with that. It is like, it's a little bit more sci-fi. It's also kind of in the vein of like superheroics and stuff like that. And there is a lot of Ben 10 cartoons and then things.
Yes.
There's Ben 10 and Ben 10 Omniverse and Ben 10 this and Ben 10 that. But yeah, that is a great cartoon that I really enjoy as well. So you also brought Spider-Man Blue. I will second that one. If you want some Spider-Man comics that are kind of also like more in the high school age range, because the like Steve Ditko, Stan Lee original Spider-Man stuff, it starts out in high school and then very quickly moves on to college, and then college is there for a while, and then graduates and stuff like that. But the Ultimate Spider-Man comics by Brian Michael Bendis are incredible. I I have to say, I remember when the Ultimate Comics first came out and the collected edition of Volume 1 came out. I did not like the artwork on the cover enough that I like wrote that series off. I was like, well, if the artwork is that bad, then ooh. And I got to college, and a friend of mine who got me into comics and stuff like that was like, no, you need to read this Harry's. And so I started to read it and got addicted and was like reading it all the time and just quickly caught up. It is a great series that focuses on Peter when he's in high school, and starts out with Gwen Stacy rather than Mary Jane as like the main love interest, which I appreciated. And it also is eventually where we get Miles Morales in those comics down the road. And I know we have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse coming out in a couple weeks here. So yeah, I'd say go check that stuff out. I'm trying to think other comics or stuff. If you're interested in getting into comics but are kind of overwhelmed with like all the superhero stuff, where do I start? I always recommend the Runaways by Brian K. Vaughan. This is about a group of kids who find out their parents are super villains, and so they decide to run away and fight back. And it's really good. It takes place in the Marvel universe, but it's on the West Coast, so it's away from everything else. It's all brand new characters. You don't need to know anything. You don't need to have read like 600 issues of Spider-Man to understand like, now I finally get who Fancy Dan is, and now I get who Montana is, and the Enforcers, right? You don't need to know all of that stuff, so you can jump right in with issue 1 by Brian K. Vaughan, and it slowly starts to introduce they've now met Spider-Man. Oh, they've now met Wolverine. Oh, they've now met Kingpin, right? And stuff like that. And I think that's a good way to kind of slowly ease yourself into those comics there. So I'd recommend those.
Nice.
Good stuff.
You are the expert.
I don't know about expert, but
you know more about Spider-Man than any other person I've met in real life.
I am a big Spider-Man fan. I like him a lot. He's a good character. But yeah,
Peter, a good boy.
Peter is a good boy.
It is my turn for pitches for next week. We just watched this 26 episode show. The week after next week, we are going back to our ongoing monthly coverage on The Good Place. So I thought I would give us a movie in between these TV seasons we're watching, give us a bit of a break. And it's mid-May. I think we are hitting summertime. You can consider summer is happening now that kids are getting out of school and shows are hitting season finales. That demarcates summer for me. So I have 3 hot movies for you.
Ooh.
Not spicy. Not sexy. High thermostat. It's sweaty in here. These are 3 sweaty movies.
Cue the Nelly song, right?
Pitch number 1 is the movie Barton Fink from 1991, directed by the Coen brothers.
Okay. Interesting.
You may know Barton Fink as being referenced in the comic book Sex Criminals as one of the fake porn titles called Hard On Fink.
Yes. Okay.
Do you remember when we read Sex Criminals
on
episode 69?
Yep.
The only choice. At the end of that comic, they had a whole page of alt lines for sexy versions of Barton Fink dialogue, and it's in the bonus material, and they're like, we knew nobody would be this much into Barton Fink that we could fit all of these into the comic. So here it is for you. Any Barton Fink fans out there. So since then, I'm like, I really got to see this Barton Fink movie.
Wow.
Set in 1941, an intellectual New York playwright, played by John Turturro, accepts an offer to write movie scripts in L.A. He finds himself with writer's block when required to do a B-movie script. His neighbor tries to help, but he continues to struggle as a bizarre sequence of events distracts him. He's apparently put up in this hotel room. It's 1941. Does AC even exist? Like, I've heard that this is like a sweaty movie. Like, the wallpaper is peeling off.
Yeah.
Everything's damp and limp, and he's just going mad from the heat, typing away at this typewriter.
Interesting. Okay.
Barton Fink. Pitch number 2. This, I believe, would be the oldest movie we would cover on the review show, should you pick it. This is a movie called The Wages of Fear.
Wages of Fear.
Why
do I know
in
this
the South?
I feel like this is also I've heard the title somewhere and I just don't know what it is.
Let me tell you what it is. In the South American jungle, supplies of nitroglycerin are needed at a remote oil field. The oil company pays 4 men to deliver the supplies in 2 trucks. A tense rivalry develops between the 2 sets of drivers on the rough, remote roads where the slightest jolt can result in death.
Is this is there like something about a bridge, like them crossing
I think
bridge
so.
on the
yes,
car?
the whole.
Okay. I think I know what this is.
The conceit of this is that because the supplies they are transporting are so sensitive, they have to go as slow and as smoothly as possible. So they're in this sweaty jungle, sweating more because they are so tense about if we take one wrong move, everything is going to explode.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Because there was something that I was into or some creator that I like that referenced it within the past couple years. And it's been like floating around in the back of my head, not like up front, like I need to watch this now, but like, yeah. Interesting. Oh, okay, cool, good.
And finally, we can bring the heat by watching Heat! Michael Mann's Heat! Pacino, De Niro, share the screen.
Ooh.
Same scene. In this 1995 crime thriller, master criminal Neil McCauley is trying to control the rogue actions of one of his men, while also planning one last big heist before retiring. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Hannah attempts to track down McCauley as he deals with the chaos in his own life, including the infidelity of his wife and the mental health of his stepdaughter. McCauley and Hannah discover a mutual respect, even as they try to thwart each other's plans.
Oh, Melissa, you made this so difficult for me.
I will provide you these additional details. Barton Fink is not streaming anywhere. You'd have to pay $4 to rent it or check your local library. The Wages of Fear is on HBO Max. Surely they're in the TCM collection. Heat appears to be on Netflix and also on Pluto TV, which for a movie this acclaimed, starring these Oscar winners, I just think it's funny that it's on little old Pluto TV.
Probably with ads playing on it.
Yeah.
Right?
Which gives you the real, like, I caught this on a Saturday afternoon on AMC vibe to it, which might be what you want. So Kyle, we can bring the heat by watching Heat! The Wages of Fear or Barton Fink.
I have to admit, it is a tie right now in my mind between The Wages of Fear and Heat.
Yeah, I figured.
I think I'm gonna go with The Wages of Fear, though. I think that one sounds the most interesting to me because I know that I would like Heat. I haven't seen it.
Yes.
And there's some podcasters that I know that have been doing a Michael Mann podcast called Manhunting.
Good.
And
yes.
Yeah. And they have like podcasts about all of that stuff. So Heat has been on my, like, all of that. Like, let me go. Why are they so interested in like this guy's filmography here? So I've been interested in checking out all of that stuff, and it's a crime movie, so of course I would like it, right? Exactly. But I'm interested in checking out this one that I like. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's always sounded interesting, and I know it's also very critically acclaimed. At least
Yes.
from what I hear, as like you remember, it was a podcast a month or two ago, and I asked you like, what was the last movie you watched to like educate yourself? Like if you were in like a class in college, like cinema 101, like what is the last movie you watched that was like film education? um I feel like this would fit in that
Yes.
category, so I want to check that one out.
Yes. I
The
also
Wages
think
of Fear, right?
The
That's the name of
Wages of
it.
Fear, yeah,
Okay.
on HBO Max. It was also remade. I think this is a French movie, perhaps. It's
Mm,
multilingual. It's international. It was later remade by William Friedkin in the 70s as a movie called Warlock, which I think is
okay.
also well received, but Wages of Fear is like it had like a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, maybe because it's so old there were not very many critics to source from at that time, but still
I gotcha.
pretty high up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it is very funny that we will be covering this movie the same weekend that Fast X comes out.
Yep.
So we're going to see the fastest driving and the slowest driving in one
Amazing.
weekend.
I love it. I love it. Opposite extremes. Slow X, fast X. Good stuff. Yeah. So next week, then that means we will do the Wages of Fear. And then the week after that, season 2 of The Good Place.
Mm-hmm.
Get excited. Go do all that stuff. Go do what you need to go do to prepare for all of that. Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT. And listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities, where we talk about a lot of old cartoons. We did an episode on Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated.
Good stuff.
We did one
Good
on Phineas
stuff.
and Ferb. You can hear me talk
Yeah.
about a lot of this stuff again.
That's awesome. You guys can find me at Yo Kyle Springer, and if you'd like to stay up to date with all of the stuff we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts on Twitter. So please go like, share, and subscribe. You guys know the deal with all of that. If you're watching this on YouTube, we got plenty more videos for you all to check out. But yeah, this has been number 253 of the Whatnauts review show. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.